I know that I have already told you a little bit about my grandfather, LeNoir, that lived in our home as I was growing up as a child. But among other things, Papa was also our family gardener. He was one of those who could produce amazing and beautiful gardens. He was one of those who would line out string to be sure that every single row was perfectly straight. Vegetable sections were artfully divided with beautiful rows of flowers, especially the ones that he said would drive away bugs. And the entire garden was enclosed by borders of grape arbors and fruit trees. And back in the left-hand corner is what he called the kids section. In that area, he would grow carrots and tomatoes and watermelons, and we were free to forage there anytime that we wanted to. And that was a part of the joy of my childhood. But I do remember that the spring my grandfather turned 90, he announced that he thought he should retire from the garden. So my father, who had recently retired as a United Methodist pastor, said that he would take up those duties. So sure enough, when spring came, my father went into the garden. Unfortunately, for 43 years, the only thing he had grown were good Methodists. He didn't know much about tomatoes and corn. So after he finished planting the garden the very next morning, my grandfather was back in the garden, pulling up every plant he put in the ground because his rows were not straight enough. To say the least, my grandfather continued as our family garden for yet another 6 years. One of my vivid childhood memories is sitting at the kitchen table in the cold of winter, watching my grandfather pour over those colorful, beautiful seed catalogs. And he would say, "LeNoir, there are a lot of things not worth your penny, but never, ever skimp on seed." Now, over the past few weeks, we've been imagining ourselves as a church as being a planting of God, being those who want to plant something beautiful for God's harvest. So I thought it might be good for us to check in on what kind of seed we have been planting for the last 30 years. So here are 3 voices from the garden of Christ United Methodist Church. The first is Margaret. You want to come and share with us?
My seeds of faith were planted even before I was born. My adopted grandparents, Mr. Bill and Miss Wida, took care of my sisters when my parents went to the hospital for my birth. I don't remember my baptism, but my church family helps me remember that I'm a child of God. I have learned a lot about God from Vacation Bible School, Banana Club, and my Sunday school teachers, like Mr. and Mrs. Slaughter, Miss Debbie, and Miss Lovell, just to name a few. Worship has been a way for me to experience God. I love participating in worship through acolyting, helping with communion, and leading the worship as a part of Mission and Music Camp. I honor God, the Creator, by collecting the recycling at church. I give my time by helping with Room in the Inn, and I do extra chores and pet sit so that I can give money for things like bricks for Raise the Roof. My seeds of faith continue to grow as my church teaches me about sharing my time, sharing my money, sharing my love, and my faith. I love my church family.
life, a vine is he, and grafted to him we must be, and thus we yield abundantly sweet fruit for all to taste and see.
So when I was asked to speak today, that's it. So when I was asked to speak today, I knew that I was going to show this off. This, for those who did not bring their binoculars today, says, "Welcome to God's World, Christ United Methodist, May Part T, October 21st, 1990. This was given to me when I was baptized in this church. Now, I was one of the first babies that were baptized in this church. Actually, in the old sanctuary was where I was baptized. And it's been 27 years now that I've been here. So there was no way I could have refused to come and talk to you all today. And also, there's many things that you guys have all done for me. But as it appears, a senior pastor said that I have to speed it along, so we're going to skip a lot of it. But what I would have to say most is that this place provided an atmosphere of love. And as I walk into this church, I encounter caring people who appreciate me for who I am. Even as a kid, when I would not sit during worship and run outside, and or maybe when I was a teenager who wouldn't stop asking annoying questions or listen. Growing up, this place of love became a breathing space from the toxicity I felt in other parts of my life. But that atmosphere only brought me to the church. It didn't teach me how to live. No, that came from the dedication of the adult volunteers. Now, at the time, I was young, and I did not appreciate these adults at all, as kids will do. However, as I grew up, the same adults over and over again would be here, showing me their genuine concern. And it's that love that transformed my life. And that's the power of this church. See, even though I was going through all these weird, kind of annoying stages of my life, you guys were there for me, being patient with me, loving me, allowing me to be myself. It's because of that I have the confidence that I go out and I can impact others the way you all have impacted me. That kind of love that makes people feel like they matter. And I know that power because you've showed it to me through your love and your presence and your commitments. Turn the page. But the most wonderful thing about this church that I've gained here is the love of this church. So, for those who don't know, I'm at Vanderbilt Divinity School. I'm hoping to be an elder of the United Methodist Church. And a large part of that is because of this church. The genuine community filled with unique people, being together, going through life. I came here 3 or 4 times a week during the hardest parts of my life. And I want to spend the rest of my life in the church, helping others experience the kind of power that this church can have, this kind of church. So as you see, there was no way that I could have refused the opportunity to come here. And to thank each of you for what you have done and for what you continue to do. It's not that you've just cared about me or that you've cared about each other, but it's that you've done this over decades. Thank you.
If we be joined to him, we know his strength and power will help us grow. His Spirit's grace through us will flow to prune and shape us as we go.
For 30 years, our family attended Edge Hill, a Nashville inner-city United Methodist church. But in 2004, we began to feel the need to be connected with a church here in Franklin, where we lived. We loved Edge Hill, but we didn't see the other members during the day out about. We already had some friends here, and I had some people that I taught with in the Franklin Special School District, so we decided to come here. Plus, we decided we wanted to be part of an outreach of this church in this community. One of the things that we noticed and we loved was the diversity. Not only do we have racial and socioeconomic diversity, but also we have people from different faiths and political backgrounds. Now, although we may have our differences, we've learned to listen to each other and try to understand why we feel the way we do. And we learn from one another, and we found a way to be united in Christ. Many of the seeds that we've had planted from this church is the fact that we have strength in numbers. We were already mentoring someone who was in prison, and it was so neat to see the prison ministry of this church just jump in and support this young man, but also us with financial and emotional and spiritual support. And others know that our annual mission trip to Nicaragua, we've been amazed at how many different church families who have chosen to spend their Christmas holidays working in this little school in Managua, painting and cleaning and preparing it for over 300 students who begin a new school year in February. I'm sure you've noticed the variety of outreach that's here in this church. So no matter where you find God calling you, there is a place, and there are other members who will help you plant seeds and make a difference in our community, in our world. And as you make your decisions, both Jean and I know that it's the best place to spend your time and your money here at Christ United Methodist Church. Oh, and P.S., we still have room on our next Nicaragua mission trip. Want to go?
The vine is he, the branches we, for now and to eternity. His word sown deep in us will be both sun and rain, sufficiency.
There are a lot of things not worth your penny, but never skip on good seed. Friends, I think we've been planting some amazing things in this congregation over the last several decades. But my question now is, what are we going to plant now? What is next for God's garden that is this congregation? I read somewhere that any old fool can count the seeds in an apple, but only God can count the apples in one tiny seed. And I just wonder how many great and marvelous trees God is already seeing, even in the mustard seeds that we're planting this day. Earlier in the service this morning, the children went out and they gave you those little bags. And yes, they do look like little snuff bags. Sorry about that. But go ahead and take those out, would you? And I'd like for you to feel those seed that are inside. If you're with your family, you might want to take them out and hold them in your hand. And you need to remember that those 5 grains of corn are seed of thanksgiving and deep gratitude for God's providential care. And as you think about the months of this year gone by, for what and for whom are you deeply thankful? As you name those, begin to think about the ways that God is moving in your life and the way that you might want to plant seed for the future. What seed of gratitude and thanksgiving can you begin to plant today? I'd like to invite you now, as you feel led, to come forward to the altar. And these are Thanksgiving baskets in the front. And if you would put your card of financial support in one of these baskets, and please take time to be in prayer at the altar as you lift up your heart to God in thanksgiving and as you seek God's guidance for the garden that you may be. Would you come as you feel led?
Divine calls us to come with him.